Senator Rosen.
Well, thank you, Chair Hassan and Ranking Member Romney. Really important hearing. Thank you all for being here today. And Mr. Hyson, as a former tech person myself who now serves in government, I appreciate your work and your willingness to serve. But I want to move right into workforce challenges because we know that they are, well, every area in our country has workforce challenges, but really particularly in legacy IT. So maintaining legacy IT systems, well, it requires a specialized workforce capable, of course, of supporting technology no longer utilized, or I wouldn't say no longer utilized, but because it is utilized, it's there, but not as nimble as we can be with newer technologies. So in many cases, you can't find the skilled workers trained in dated systems, and I hate to use the word dated systems and technologies, but those kinds of things that I programmed in, COBOL, Fortran, assembler from the 1980s and 90s, you're trying to find a workforce that can maintain while you still have it, that can develop new systems, and then unload and reload, make that transition. So it's really important. And so while we transition, we have to train our IT, the younger generation coming up, on how to do those things. So Mr. Hyson, for maintenance development, for transition, design and planning, and for unloading a database and reloading it to the new system, if you will, or databases, however they are. How are you approaching this expected modernization, and what are you doing to prepare the workforce that is going to live in both of these worlds and needs to for a little bit longer? And then after that, Mr. Armstrong and Mr. Oshania, if you want to talk about it as well.
Well, Senator, thank you. It certainly is always an experience when I bring a new engineer or IT professional in from Silicon Valley and introduce them to how things do work in the
wonders
government.
Of COBOL.
Well, we're thankfully largely free of COBOL at DHS. I think there's probably a pocket or two
the
there.
Lovely assembler, 16-bit, you know.
Yes, but it certainly is a different experience than working in the private sector. We're focused on training across the board. One of the areas that I and my fellow CIOs at DHS have identified as a priority is standing up a department-wide IT academy that will include standardized training for all new IT hires into the department, as well as ongoing development opportunities for our employees to develop new skills, whether that be in AI and data science, customer experience, agile development, or the like. The IT workforce at DHS is a tremendous asset. We have over 5,000 talented and committed professionals, and so while we're also looking to bring in more talent from the private sector, we have opportunities and are focused on enabling our existing workforce to grow and continue to increase their impact.
Well, and you may have to work with the private sector who's still using legacy systems in order to share data or do some of that, so it's important. So, Mr. Armstrong? You laughed at my 16-bit, so I appreciate that.
I happen to be one of those legacy COBOL programmers, so it might have put some.
I have a hexadecimal calculator on my desk still, so there you go.
It might have helped put my kids through college. So. At FEMA, and admittedly, I've only been there about 8 months now, so I'm still learning a lot about FEMA. We have a pretty aggressive program in place for retraining some of the existing staff on things like cloud technology and trying to get them, I would say, retooled for the newer technologies. But we're also in the process, unfortunately, because we've lost so many folks through attrition, of hiring a little over 100 people in IT. And so we're looking for newer skill sets as we're bringing people on board. The challenge is attracting them away from industry, and you don't come into government jobs for the money, obviously. So you have to really get them wanting to come in to do the mission and be part of something bigger than themselves. So that's kind of our approach.
Thank you. Mr. Oshania.
Thank you, Senator Rosen. What we've done at TSA, in addition to what my colleagues mentioned, is kind of reducing the fear of getting your hands dirty. Myself and my deputy are also former developers, so we allow folks to come in and use the technology. We've noticed that very new and very tenured staff, if you give them a chance to work with vendors and come in and just spend the time, they'll kind of be open to it and use that process. We actually had a staff member build a system themselves in the last 30 days that we're actually using internally. So once you reduce that fear factor and let everyone learn and then fail forward, we're able to build out what I call the IT IQ. We even have in our airports what we call lift cells, innovation cells, which allow folks in the airports to come up with ideas and build on platforms. And the more you let folks work and use it, the smarter they become.
I like that ITIQ. I'm going to use that one, but thank you. I'm going to move back over to you, Mr. Armstrong, and talk about FEMA disaster grants, because last month I led several of my Nevada delegation colleagues in urging the administration to grant our governor's request to declare a major disaster in Nevada due to severe winter storms. Excuse me, that caused extreme flooding, rock slides, landslides. And so I was pleased to see a disaster later declared. So it allows our Nevada residents, our local businesses, our tribal communities the access to the federal resources that they need. But as Nevadans start to access these vital FEMA resources, I want to ensure that your systems are up to date and secure so that my constituents can get what they need to rebuild their lives in many cases. So, Mr. Armstrong, what is the status of the FEMA grants management modernization, which was started in 2017? And FEMA's individual assistance and technical support modernization, which is really that interface that began last year.
Sorry, the IT guy forgot to turn on. With respect to grants management modernization, we've moved over 19 grant types so far. We've got another 20 to move, and those are projected to be moved by April of 2024. In addition to that, the program is in the process of getting a new vendor on board to start to transition data from the legacy systems into the new systems, and that is projected to start in the fall of this year. So the goal would be to get all the grants up and running by the spring of next year, the data migrated over by midsummer of next year, and decommissioning to happen sometime in 2025 of the legacy system. And then with respect to your second question about individual assistance, that planning is still early on. There's some initial work that's been done to stand up a cloud environment instance as part of our bigger FEMA cloud environment. So that work should be completed in the fall. And currently the program is in the planning / looking for funding stage to really get off the ground.
That's our trigger, looking for funding. But I would urge putting an app as well, because most people, if they're in a disaster, what do they leave with? Just a phone. They don't maybe have their other things with them, and that's an easy way for them.
Yeah, and I don't want you to get the impression that nothing's going on. There is still some work to try to help modernize some of the legacy processes that are there today. We recently, led by the administrator, had a dog fooding session where we brought in our executives and put them through scenarios where they got to kick the tires on both grants management and individual assistance. We all had scenarios where we were different types of survivors or different types of grant users, and had to interact with the system and give feedback to the program. So it's a good opportunity to step outside of your comfort zone and put yourself in the shoes of somebody that actually has to use the system.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I do have one more question, Madam Chair, if there's no one waiting, is that okay? Well, I want to talk, I know that Senator Romney talked about the vast amounts of data that we have and how do we keep it secure and some of the things that are really important to us. So I want to talk about the concept of federal data centers, because in 2014, OMB launched an initiative to consolidate our federal data centers, which has resulted in a cost savings of $5.8 billion. And the Department of Homeland Security began its own data center consolidation efforts long before government-wide federal data consolidation efforts were launched. And so DHS, you undertook this project with the objective of fostering productive collaboration and facilitating improved data sharing. And so in March, this committee, we're very proud to have marked up the Data Center, Federal Data Center Enhancement Act, bipartisan legislation I introduced that requires OMB to coordinate a government-wide effort to develop minimum requirements for federal data centers related to cyber intrusions, data center availability, and resilience against both physical attacks and natural disasters. So, Mr. Walsh, how do you assess the success of Department of Homeland Security data center consolidation efforts?
So, as you noted, data center consolidation has been a great source of cost savings in the government. And DHS, with the emphasis they've placed on enterprise-wide services, has been working towards that. A prior colleague of mine once said that if you can't consolidate, if you can't do it well, up to snuff to the metrics that you're talking about, then maybe it's time for us to get out of the business. And I think the government, in many cases over the past 7-8 years, has been doing exactly that, getting out of the business. And I think DHS has been doing a good job, as you noted, towards the forefront of the government to eliminating its data centers.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, thank you,